Hi, and welcome to Divorce Hacker. I'm your host, Ann Grant. On this show, we'll have a variety of guests who've been through divorce and are experts on the topic. Whether you're thinking about a divorce, in the midst of it, or already divorced, we are here to share our stories with you in the hope that you may relate, learn, process, and overcome whatever you're experiencing in your life. Welcome to another episode of Divorce Hacker. Today, I am so excited to welcome Jim Grant. Jim Grant is a very successful litigator. He's been practicing law for over 30 years now.
32.
He's to be feared in a courtroom. And he's also my ex-husband and the father of two of our children. I, at the time, was also a litigator at a large international law firm. And Jim and I went through an extremely challenging, high-conflict divorce. We were in courtrooms for, I think, about 5 years. There was a period of years where Jim and I really only spoke to each other either through our attorneys or in a courtroom in a legal proceeding. And consequently, our children, who were quite young when this journey started, 7 and 11, were significantly impacted. And in fact, what ended up happening is, once the dust had settled for Jim and I, we moved on with our lives, had new partners, carried on in our legal practices, and reconstructed our lives. But our children, as they grew into young adults, what we found was that they were really damaged by our failure to co-parent. And that's actually why I asked Jim to be on, or he actually volunteered to be on our show today. And what we want to talk about is that journey, what he and I learned, how it impacted our children. And if you're watching this and in the midst of a divorce or contemplating a divorce with children of any age, we're hopeful that our experience and now our strength and our hope will assist you in making wise choices, and so your children can be spared from some of the anguish that ours experience. So Jim, welcome for joining me. I really appreciate you having the courage to show up. And it's
nervous.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. Thanks. So talk to us about your perspective on this journey that you and I shared from very different positions.
Well, first of all, I want to fast forward. We're buddies now. We've come full circle. We're co-parenting, I think, as well as any post-divorce folks can do with our kids. So in terms of going back to the divorce, it was obviously the destruction of a family system. We created a pretty cool family system. We were married, I think, 16 years. Have two beautiful kids together, and for whatever reason, it came to, it fell apart, and we both were very hurt, and so we're both lawyers, so we basically went to court, and it was pretty bad, and the kids were confused. Our families were confused. My siblings, our siblings were confused. Our parents were confused. So it's a very chaotic situation, and it's hard to act in a healthy way in that very chaotic situation. And so yes, you're right. We litigated for years. Most of it was about the children, and that was not fair to them. It wasn't fair to you and me. And so it happened. That's about, I don't know, 10 plus years ago. Our kids are now in their 20s, mid and early 20s, and I think they're very happy that, we're buddies again and we can co-parent and we're on the same page.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, the fact that you and I were able to find a way to co-parent, I think, would provide any divorcing couple hope, because our relationship was so deeply fractured. It was so extreme. And so certainly being able to co-parent now is a great joy. Our daughter in particular was deeply impacted and damaged as a result of the trauma that she experienced during the divorce process. As a young girl, she was just so deeply attached to you, which I know you remember. And we know that daughters, their primary relationship with their father is so deeply important with regard to then how they navigate in their future relationships, particularly with men. And so we witnessed that. We watched her suffer. And it was really, at least my perspective on this, and you can share yours, of course, is that it was her deep suffering that really brought us back together, that forced us to work together to seek out and obtain the resources she needed to get well. And so that was the silver lining. But what are your thoughts about, as a father of a daughter going through divorce, what are your thoughts about that? And what insights do you have that you could share that might be helpful for fathers of daughters that are going through divorce?
Well, in our divorce, and it's probably more common than not, the father has to move out. So that's yes, Taylor and I have a very, very deep-seated relationship ever since she was born, right after my dad passed, and I became like super dad, and then she was my beautiful little baby, and I wouldn't put her down and all of that. So kind of from that extreme to I didn't see her a lot. She was in early teens, pre-teens when we got divorced, and I moved out. I didn't see her often. And so that bond, just structurally was broken. She didn't see her dad a lot, and that's incredibly important for a daughter to do that. So I struggled to maintain a relationship with her, and I didn't do a great job because I wasn't around her, and she, that leads to feelings of abandonment or whatever the child's thinking, and they don't know what the dad's going through, and so that's where it really kind of fractured. She needed her dad. I wasn't around, and so that led to feelings of loss and abandonment. And so, in terms of in retrospect, how to do it better, I don't know how to do it better. It was a very, very precarious situation. And then in divorces, especially when we had a girl and a boy, I don't know. It's almost like kids might take some sides. I don't know. It's hard to know kind of what the cause and effect was, but I couldn't be there for her for whatever reason. It's hard to say, Anne. I don't know. It fractured, and she bore a huge damaging loss there, and I was there for her, but I wasn't. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard structurally to maintain that relationship. It gets complicated day to day.
So let's dig a little deeper. During that time period, and this is not to put you on the hot seat at all, but it's something that as a family law attorney, I deal with every single day. Sure. So I often am dealing with sort of the template that you and I experienced. We're getting a divorce, we have a daughter, we have a son. They're like elementary, middle school age, and now they're moving into their preteens. Daughters typically, what I have found, since I've been doing this work, do exactly what happened in our situation, which is they tend to gravitate to their moms. It's just really common, and the dad becomes rather estranged. The other factor that I see happen all the time, and I want your honest input on this now that we have some distance from it, is that you had a girlfriend. And so,
About to bring that up.
yeah, and so what happens is it creates a dynamic where the soon-to-be ex-wife or ex-wife has issues with that always.
Sure.
They're never okay with it.
Yep.
Even if, they chose to get divorced, it's just a fact. And then what happens, and it wasn't just our daughter, is it creates this whole other dynamic where the daughter feels less than or no longer the priority.
Yep.
And then that creates just this whole snowballing effect where moms are often just being protective, I think. And dads then have the new girlfriend, and the fracturing goes from being, what might be a crack to just, the Grand Canyon. And then we have all kinds of problems. So from my vantage point, those were some of the dynamics at play.
Yep.
I see that happen all the time. And I often feel like, gosh, if the dad could just take a beat and not jump right into a new relationship, that would be super helpful in bridging, the gap. But, people have their needs. So can you be candid with us in retrospect now, sort of from 30,000 feet, about those issues and what your thoughts are in having seen how all this is played out?
Yeah, in retrospect, don't do what I did. It became really awkward. And obviously, guys leave the house and they're lonely and they need companionship and all of that. That happened with me. You didn't like it, and rightly so. It drove primarily a wedge between Taylor and me. It felt awkward. I didn't know how to act in a way. I was confused. I didn't know how to act, and it might have been the type of person I was with. She wasn't an adult.
Yeah.
She wasn't, and I felt. It's weird. I felt weird energy. Taylor and Ryan would come over and be with me and that other person. Taylor needed me.
Yeah.
And I needed to just hug the heck out of Taylor.
That's right.
And so, getting a little verklempt here. And I felt weird because I felt a weird energy. It was like a weird kind of three-way energetic weirdness.
Yeah, I felt it too.
I know. And so, guys, don't do that.
It just really
Take a beat, like you said, take a beat.
It complicated things.
It totally did. And you didn't like her for what it was really awkward. I didn't know how to navigate it. And so I would avoid it. And Taylor's this that hurt Taylor.
Yeah.
So don't do that. That's the point.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think men need to hear that from a man. My male clients, I often, advise them to either don't engage in a new relationship until the dust is really settled, put their children first, or keep it really under the radar. And they often look at me with sort of this look like we speak a different language. And so I really appreciate you being candid, because I think that men need to hear this from a man and understand that, I think what happens in that situation is people lose the long-term perspective, which you and I can offer, which is the choices we make in those moments to satisfy our needs in the moment have such far-reaching ramifications, in particular for our children. I mean, you and I have moved on. You've moved on from that relationship. It's like the blip on the radar screen for us, but our daughter continues to recover from feeling like she is less than, and it's, I think, ties back to that time.
And her dad, yeah. That's the most important energy you need from a guy, from a man. Your dad, unconditional love, and however you think you look, you're the most beautiful person in the world, and all of that. I dropped the ball.
But you know what? I appreciate, Jim, and I know that our children do too. You're making up for it in every conceivable way. You are so present now for them. It's such a joy to see. You recently were...
You're making me cry here. Okay.
You recently showed up for our son in ways that I'm not able to at the moment with his sports commitments all over the country. And when our daughter was really in a life or death situation, you were the one that got her where she needed to be. You were the man on the ground who stepped up and did what needed to be done at that moment in time when it was a life or death situation. You saved her life. And now you continue to show up for her in ways that I find it to just be a pleasure to observe and to see how far you've come and now how far she has come.
Yeah.
Because the connection between you is so critically important. That energy, as you've mentioned, between a father and a daughter. The fact that you have stepped up for her the way you have and shown her how much you love her. She has rebounded in kind. And now she's in graduate school.
Yeah.
She's, both of our children who had so many issues now, it's just like they're like two rockets that are, and a lot of that is because of you stepping up. So
well,
I really appreciate that, and I know that they do too.
I appreciate what you said. I mean, in terms of the parent who was there 24/7 for our kids over the last dozen years, it was you. Okay, so that's what happens in a divorce. You kept the home environment alive for them. You kept this wonderful foundation. I kind of bounced around or whatever, but I've always been around. So, in terms of appreciation of how I've helped with our children, you deserve a ton of credit as well in terms of this, holding space, the day-to-day, I was always there. I was a call away, and I wasn't that Disneyland dad and all of that. I wanted to see my kids as much as possible, but it's kind of ironic, post-divorce, we worked better together. Post-divorce, and I was thinking about, why is that? Obviously, a lot, if two married folks are around each other 24/7, we can annoy each other or whatever. The day-to-day, the resentments or whatever. We don't have that. I respect you. You're a great mom. In retrospect, what I can see what a great mom you are to our kids, and it's not colored by I resent you for what happened yesterday or whatever. We just don't have that dynamic anymore. So it's cool to see that in a post-divorce environment where we didn't stay together in a bad marriage for the kids or whatever, and they're seeing they were fighting all the time or whatever. We got out, and it was gnarly, but we came around, and knowing our kids need us both. One, they need to see that we work together, and that we're not fighting or bashing the other in their eyes or whatever. So we're actually, we're co-parenting better in a post-divorce environment.
We've come a long way.
Yeah. So.
What advice would you give to men that are either in the midst of a divorce or are contemplating divorce with respect to dealing with some of these issues that we've talked about today with their wives and with their kids?
divorce is very costly on every level. It's not a great choice.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, financially, it's not a great choice, but more, it's destroying a family system that you went in with great intentions to build this beautiful family and help each other out, be partners and bring kids into the world and teach them the right things. And your family loves your family, and holidays, all that stuff. So it's you slam doors on chapters of life. I have boxes in my garage with there's a chapter of my life that I'm not, it's not on the shelves in the house or whatever. It's a chapter of my life I can't share on a daily basis. I have a great partner now, and she wouldn't care if I brought the box from the garage, but it's weird. It's a compartmentalization of my life. Divorce, It's just, you want to create continuity in your life, and you want to, die of old age in your sleep or whatever, with a nice, cool family and a wife of 50 years or whatever, that you get on each other's nerves, but you love them. So I don't have that. So there's that. In terms of just being selfish, I wish it wasn't so compartmentalized in my life. And I came from a family. My parents loved each other until my dad passed too early, and I'm the only one of the 4 kids who got divorced. So it's don't do it. It's not cool. It makes it hard.
Would you try harder to preserve the marriage by working through therapy, or trying some other ways to open the communication channels to address whatever is at issue to preserve the family if you had a do-over?
Yeah. I mean, we went to couples therapy. Communication skills. We're very smart people. We could have communicated better. That's the way to diffuse things, because when you cannot communicate with your spouse, you avoid it. You avoid the discussion of X, which isn't a huge X. It may be a minor annoyance, or you could have done this differently or whatever. But if you don't talk about it, it festers. And you start resenting that person. I can't talk to my spouse or whatever. And then you become distant. And the reason you do that is because if maybe in your experience you bring up X, which isn't a huge X, but at least it spirals out of control into the D word being thrown out or whatever. It's just not safe. You don't go there. So communication skills is 101. My mom, who and we all love, her grandparents lived into their mid-90s in Michigan, and they were interviewed by the local paper in Central Lake, Michigan, after 60 years of marriage or whatever, and the reporter said, "What's your secret?" And they said, kindness. Kindness. Come from kindness. Come from love. Don't come from you failed at the blah, blah. Come from love. Like this hurt my feelings, or whatever, however they were kind to each other. I'm sure they got on each other's nerves after 60 years or whatever, but they were kind to each other. That keeps families together. That is a foundation to keep your family system together. Teach your kids kindness. Be kind to your partner. And talk about things. Diffuse the situation. Don't go to bed, resenting the other person or whatever. So, I didn't do that. We didn't do that. And we got divorced. But through pain in living, you get wisdom and appreciation for what you missed or lost or whatever.
I really appreciate that. Well, I think we've covered what we needed to cover today, and I really appreciate your being so candid. I think this is going to help a lot of people, and particularly men who might be contemplating what to do and how to act and choices to make. And I think it's going to change a lot of people's lives. So thank you for showing up today.
Thank you.
And thank you for being such a good dad to both of our kids.
Appreciate it.
All right. Till next time, Divorce Hacker.
Is that good?